I'm going to build a Laravel project from scratch and deploy it to production in 5 hours. Let's begin. First things first, we're setting up Laravel. I'm adding some packages I like to use, the boilerplate stuff. Now with the boilerplate set up, it's time to create some models. And maybe I should tell you what I'm building at this point. I'm actually revisiting an old project of mine. It's called Aggregate. You can think of it as a community-driven RSS reader. Now the difference with a personal RSS reader is that on Aggregate, people actually suggest new blogs and RSS feeds, and I will curate them into a public feed that everyone can see. So there are two models. We have a source, which is basically a link to an RSS feed, and each source has posts. And with these two models in place, I'm going to do some more setup work. Now I'm building a job that synchronizes one source, and I'm going to create a command for it just so that I have something tangible to work with. Also considered adding some caching in the sync source job, but eventually I didn't go for it. I'm going to stick with the MVP before trying to optimize problems that might never occur. Adding some dummy data, and don't worry, I'll create some proper seeders soon. I'm just in that hacking zone right now and I want to get my ID on paper as fast as possible, but I will polish it later. We're half an hour in now and we're actually pulling in data from several sources. And now that we have our data, it's time to add some frontend. I'm going to use Tailwind CSS, so I'm setting all of that up right now. And note that I'm not a frontend developer, so I'll be reading quite a lot of docs when it comes to Tailwind. So we're getting somewhere. We're already seeing a list of posts, and now it's a matter of playing with styling this page just for a while. I actually find it interesting how much time I spend on front-end stuff in this project. I actually feel like even with Tailwind, I'm reinventing a lot of components with every new hobby project I start. I know there are some paid solutions out there, and there probably are a ton of presets available, so I should probably look into those at one point. But even despite that, I'm still not a front-end developer, and much of this front-end stuff doesn't come naturally to me. I'm way more comfortable writing backend code than doing all of this, which is probably why I spend way more time on the front-end part. So trying out Laravel's built-in pagination here, although I find it looks a bit too bulky to my liking, but I'll keep it here for now and change it later. And so this is the list of RSS feeds from version 1 of Aggregate, and I'm going to clean it up a little bit because it also included a bunch of blogs that weren't related to programming, which is the only topic I want to focus on in this version. So some more styling again, and you can see how I'm truly all over the place, but it's a technique that seems to work for me. So now we're shifting our focus back to the backend. I'm going to add some admin capabilities, and so I'll need some authentication. And luckily, Laravel has all of this out of the box, so it's only a matter of requiring Laravel Breeze. Adding lots more dummy data as well, because I don't want to sync with real sources every time I reseed my database. And now I'm adding a state field to our posts, which is how I'll be able to determine which posts are shown on the front page. And so the idea is that this list of posts is manually curated by me. I will manually publish or deny every post that comes into my feed, so that people who are reading the public feed are only reading what matters. Now, of course, that means that they'll only read what I think is good content. But that's kind of the point of this project. It's my RSS feed exposed to the world. Remember how I said that route attributes were broken? Well, I'm going deep into a rabbit hole because of them. My logged in user wasn't available in the controller that was using route attributes to register its routes. And I know it had something to do with middlewares not being registered, but I just couldn't get it to work. I spent more time than I'd like to admit on this issue. And finally, I decided to go with manually registering my routes in separate route files instead. And now that my authentication issues are solved, I can finally start building some admin functionality. Stuff like publishing and denying posts is what I will first look at. And once again, most of my time goes towards the interface and not the backend code, adding a filter, adding some colors, stuff like that. I'm also going to add a start state to highlight posts that I find really good. And some more front-end, trying to get all pixels in the right place. I'm also manually implementing my filter system, showing and hiding denied posts and only showing pending posts, which is something I might want to improve in the future because this controller action is growing quite large. I decided to add a login and logout link at the very bottom of the page. And once again, you can see how I'm really all over the place. I'm just jumping to the things that I see, which maybe is the normal way of how projects start for many people. Remember, we're only 2 hours in at this point, so I don't really mind that I don't have a structured plan. I'm still in that hacking phase, just getting the idea out of my head as fast as possible. Now I'm working on a feature where people can actually suggest new sources. Those can be RSS links, but it's also okay for people to simply paste the URL of a blog, which I will crawl to find the right RSS link. But you guessed it, before I knew it, I was already doing front-end stuff again. And it's not that I really like doing this front-end stuff, but I also don't want it to look like a mess. Also changed the pagination to a simple more button because this is a chronological list anyway, and you'll probably only be interested in new and recent posts, a little bit like Reddit or Hacker News. Okay, back to suggesting sources. We'll add a state field to sources as well, so that we can publish or deny them. And here I'm adding some controllers to manage that flow. And this is the form where people can suggest a link. And once again, styling takes most of the time. Still doing front-end stuff, just moving things around so they make sense from a logged-in user point of view. And so it's been more than half an hour since I started working on this feature, and I actually spent most of the time on adding controllers and views and moving things around visually, which is totally fine and important, but I never realized there was such a time difference between back and front end before filming this process. And maybe it's just me with my lacking front end experience, that's possible as well. Okay, now we're finally doing some PHP stuff again. And here I'm copying over some code from aggregate version 1, which will crawl a submitted URL and search for the related RSS feed. So yeah, I'm finally doing some productive backend work here. It feels good. This is really the kind of thing I like doing the most. Doing some testing now, and to be clear, I'm not writing any automated tests. This is a hobby project with literally 2 models and a couple of jobs and controllers to manage them. So I find it's okay for now to just move along. It's okay to be pragmatic with these types of projects. And we're back to front-end again. I'm using colors to indicate post and source states. And I thought it would be a good idea to add some kind of legend, because I probably won't remember everything solely based on colors within a couple of days. Doing some fine tunings now. I want to make sure that my filters and admin actions keep track of other filters as well. And I really should extract that functionality to something reusable in the future. I also plan on adding Livewire to publish and deny sources and posts, but I really didn't want to be bothered with even more front-end work at the moment. So that's a to-do for the future. Right now, I'm making some improvements to the source syncing command, trying to cover some edge cases that I noticed when pulling in data from around 100 sources. Some RSS feeds have different names for like date fields and stuff, and I need to make sure I parse those as well. Doing some more front-end again. And here I'm adding a feature that will automatically publish a source when an admin submits it. And it makes it just a little more convenient. Also added duplication detection so that when several people submit the same source, it won't get added twice. I'm going to send a mail to myself whenever a new source is added. And if you're familiar with Laravel, you know that this isn't difficult at all to do. These are the kinds of things I really like about Laravel. I've got mailing, authentication, queue workers, all out of the box with almost no effort. It's really one of Laravel's core strengths. And so we're closing in on our 5-hour mark, and it's time to actually deploy my code now. I'm going to use Forge to set up my server, and I'm managing some DNS settings as well. And just as a heads up, I did cut out 5 minutes of footage where I was setting up passwords and environment variables. Setting up my deploy script at the moment and making sure my server has access to the GitHub repository. And one thing I forgot was to make the correct cache folders for Laravel. I did make a couple, but not all, and you'll see that soon. I was actually deploying the old version of Aggregate, which is why there are these composer errors, but that was quickly fixed. And now we're ready for our first actual deploy. Which failed because I forgot to add Spacy's database backup package. Second attempt. And that's done. And now I'm struggling with those cache folders. But I did manage to get it working after a couple of minutes. Setting up Horizon and Laravel scheduler. And we actually have our app deployed and running on production. I will do some final tweaks still. And I'll add some sources as well. I'm going to write an import command to just add all my sources in bulk. And I'm also adding a final admin filter to only show posts of today. I thought that might be useful. We're at the 5-hour mark, and now I'm just playing around a little bit, trying stuff out. And that's it. A Laravel project from scratch to production within 5 hours. Now I can still come up with a couple of improvements. I have a to-do list with 7 or 8 things on it that I still want to do, but that's work for another day. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, you know what to do. Until next time.